I think about that too with the technological stuff because there social media and things like that are not connection, but they do give you a feeling like connection. I have a friend who likes to call it empty calorie connections. It's the thing where like you feel like you're getting the connection. It's kind of like when you eat fast food or junk food. Like it feels like food, but it's not quite getting the nutritional needs of actual food or actual connection. Um, anyway, this is a
Well,
tangent from the early life stuff, but something made me think of that.
okay, it's not an all or nothing choice, obviously.
Sure.
It's a matter of degree, and it's personal. I mean, obviously, I mean, and with children too. If they have their own electronic devices, then they have the option of deciding when they're going to use them. I mean, obviously, it's parental discretion about if and when you provide electronic devices for your children, and also monitoring your own choices of how many hours a day are you using these things, and what kind of model are you exhibiting for your children.
I do like the guide of connection and the need for connection as a way to decide this, because I think a lot of people get caught up in the arbitrary specifications of the technology and they're thinking about what does this particular app do, as opposed to just the meta question of like, am I connecting with my kids? Are my kids getting enough connection? Are they learning what connection is? Are they learning how to connect to another person? Um, is that something that an iPad could teach them, or is that something that only I, as another human being, can teach them? So, are there any other things that we can do to create greater connection between ourselves and our children, or the people around us, with the information that you've showed? Is there any other? It sounds like you actually, by the way, connection is the solution for the larger question of getting this information out, as we have to connect more people to it.
Yeah.
So, are there any other thoughts you might have, or suggestions around how we can create more connection?
Give me a moment.
Sure.
Um, okay. Uh, did I mention corporal punishment?
We haven't talked about that yet, but I suspect anyone who's been following this conversation could probably guess your perspective on that.
Okay, well, let me just add a couple of whatever relevant information here.
Sure.
Corporal punishment is very common in this country. Most children in this country are hit by their parents. The common form, of course, is spanking, but it goes beyond that. Let's see. One interesting relevant fact here is that even infants are sometimes hit by caregivers and parents. Infants now. And the research shows about 1 out of 3 infants.
Wow.
That's amazing. Are hit by parents and caregivers. Okay, now corporal punishment teaches children that violence is okay. If my parents doing it, it must be okay. Okay, this is another example where there are decades of research to show many harmful short and long-term effects of corporal punishment. Okay, another thought I want to mention here is there are 60 countries in the world that have agreed to a national policy of advocating no corporal punishment of children in any setting, including the home. 60 countries. It's probably no surprise that the United States refuses to sign on to that agreement. So the United States also has refused to sign on to, I think it's the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. So we don't recognize rights of children in this country very easily or being widespread. So getting back to corporal punishment, children who are hit are obviously more likely to hit others when they grow up. even when they grow up, they're more likely to hit their own parents because they're growing up with suppressed anger about having been hit when they were younger children. Okay, they're more likely to hit their own kids. They're more likely to engage in violent behavior. They're more likely to engage in domestic violence. I don't remember if I said it. One out of 4 women in this country will be subjected to domestic violence some point by a partner sometime in adulthood. 1 out of 5 women will be raped at some point in her life. So we've got a tremendous problem with violent behavior, and we're deluding ourselves if we think corporal punishment is not a significant factor in contributing to this problem of violence.
You know, sometimes I forget what a bubble of highly conscious people that I socialize with, because to me, when I hear that, I'm just like, I can't imagine why would anyone do that. But at the same time, I know most people have experienced that growing up. And when I talk to most, even my friends who come from or are trying to create highly conscious communities and families, they're like, yeah, that's how I was raised. It's part of the reason I'm not doing it now. Yeah. It makes sense to avoid. Is there anything else that you want to add that I haven't asked about yet, or that we haven't gotten a chance to talk about?
Well, we covered a lot. How's our time?
We're good there.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, we have Ron, I have all the time in the world. If you have things that you want to share, I think this is important. I will ask, where can, since we're closing now, where can people find you, or what if someone hears this information and they agree and they want to take action, where should they go? What action should people take?
Okay, give me a moment. Let's see. Okay, well, in addition to making better personal choices in terms of being prospective parents and passing that information along in terms of recommending or suggesting, there's something the culture can do. I call these cultural principles of peace, if it relates to violent behavior, but it can be more than that. We need to have better economic, political, and social support for families. And as I've said, extended paid parental leave would go a long way toward that. We need more and improved parenting and child development education in our universities and elsewhere. We need reconsideration of our cultural priorities. And in particular, of course, that would relate to the welfare of families as opposed to other existing priorities that are higher up on the scale. Maybe we can, make a transition there. I also recommend that women be more assertive regarding infant and child care. Women, generally speaking now, are more in contact with their instincts and emotions, and by that method, they would be able to more responsibly respond to infant and child care. So the point is here, if there's a disagreement with, for example, the father of the child, don't give up on your assertiveness simply because the father says, let's do X instead of Y. Okay. Generally speaking, more open communication and wherever it can be effective. And then, so what other people can do, as I've said, communicate with others who may have children in the future, contact news sources, share with social media, contact local, state, and federal representative to support families. And, at the lower level, it's a little easier to get response than at the higher level, but let's go after all of them. And with these representatives that we have, start talking to them and communicating about extending paid parental leave. We need it. Other countries have it. Why not us? And I could conclude here with a couple of important quotes. First, what's done to children, they will do to society. That's said by psychiatrist Carl Menninger. And then, if we're to have real peace, we must begin with the children, said by Mahatma Gandhi.
Speaking of social change, by the way, as I understand it, you have a piece of social change that you're working on as well. Are you still involved in an attempt to get circumcision removed from Medicaid? Is that part of something you're working on?
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned it. Yes, I have initiated a case here in the state of Massachusetts to challenge a state Medicaid program, which is called Mass Health, which pays for circumcisions for those who are using Mass Health or state funding because they can't afford to pay their own health expenses or have insurance on healthcare. So the key thing here is the funding for Medicaid by regulation explicitly says it should only be for necessary medical services. Okay, and nobody claims that male infant circumcision is medically necessary. Nobody, no doctor, no society, no policy statement. So I don't know if this is unique or not, but Massachusetts has a regulation that says that if a sufficient number of taxpayers get together, it happens to be 24, and sign a petition that supports challenging an abuse of a state department or an irresponsible use of fundings by a state department, they can be taken to court based on this regulation. I'm sorry. They can be taken to court to have the court decide if the case is won, that the state department, in this case, Mass Health, should stop paying for Medicaid circumcision. So it's been a while. We had a court hearing earlier this month, and we're awaiting the decision. And certainly I'll make it known when the decision is made. But obviously this would be very important if we could get a supportive decision by the judge.
Is there a way that people can support that, or is that just something we're going to have to wait and see what happens with it?
Well, we're going to have to wait and see. Yeah, it's in the judge's hands, and when that is decided, then my team will decide on our next steps, and we'll make suggestions to others on what they might do to contribute.
Okay. Is there anything else that you want to add before we finish the show?
Oh, that's it. We've covered a lot.
Cool. Well, thank you.
I appreciate what you've done in your work too.
Thank you.